Hello and happy September. This is Sharon Colvin. I'm the Youth Services Consultant for the Vermont Department of Libraries. I apologize for being a little late this month for what is Sharon reading. I've been having some dental issues and talking wasn't really a good thing a couple weeks ago. So I'm going to try to catch up. So this will be the August announcement because we're only 3 days into September, right? Forgive me. So just a little reminder of how to get to the archives. This is libraries.vermont.gov. If you click on services, and then you can click on children and teens, either here on the side or in the center. You'll get everything that you need to know about children and teen services. You want resources, and then you want collection development. And right here, these are the new books. I haven't done that one yet. I'm still a little puffy and a little camera shy, so I'll get to it soon. And this recording will go right here. So use these resources, and if there's ever anything that you're looking for that you can't find here, definitely let me know. All right, so this is what is Sharon reading. I have read quite a bit while I was out. We are going to start down here with a good old-fashioned tear-jerker. I know that's exactly why you came here today, was to read 12 Listen about a tearjerker. But no, this one's really, really good. I have to say, Melissa Cantor is pretty amazing. And with the popularity of The Fault in Our Stars, it's clear that our teens are looking for these types of stories. This book is about two best friends. They were ballerinas together. They were serious about it, and they were at the New York Ballet School, or whatever they called it in the book, and they got cut together. And so we're now back in regular high school, and one of them, I can't remember their names. I think it was Olivia. Olivia is still dancing. She's teaching younger children how to dance, but Zoe won't have any of it. She doesn't want to dance ever again. She's really kind of bitter and angry, and just no. So I think she played basketball a little bit and is trying to be like a normal teenager. And so these two best friends, they are joined at the hip. Definitely sisters from different mothers, closer than close could be. They do everything together. And so it's just that much more devastating when Olivia finds out she has leukemia. And so basically this story is what it's like for a sister or a best friend or a soulmate to go through this kind of the treatment and recovery of this kind of disease. Now, this is a tear jerker. It's very realistic. Olivia has several relapses, and she is very, very sick. And she goes through all the stages of grief and the anger and the denial and everything, and lots of different kinds of treatments. And it is not an easy story. I think your high school students will definitely love this one. I adored it. I thought their friendship was really magical. And it's good to see these kinds of friendships where it's about friendship rather than romance. Of course, there's a little bit of romance in there because they're teenagers, but the heart of the story is about their friendship, which I really love. So I think if you have high school students who love The Fault in Our Stars, or middle school students, you should definitely consider purchasing this one. I think it will be a nice addition to your collection. It's also really good on audio. All right, next one, None of the Above. And I have to say, I had high hopes for this one. One of my colleagues handed this book to me, and I thought, oh, it's wonderful that somebody's finally writing a book about what it's like to be intersex. It's not something we talk about a lot, but of course, now that transgender issues are in the news, some of these things are becoming a little less taboo, which is excellent and really, really good for young adult literature. However, I have to say, this book, it's about a girl, her name is Kristen, and she finds out she's intersex. I don't remember what happened to her mom, but she's living with her dad, and doesn't really notice that by 16 she hasn't gotten her period, isn't really developing, and so she goes to the doctor and finds out she's intersex. And what that means is that she has XY chromosomes, and her body just isn't reacting to estrogen the way that other people's bodies do, or to testosterone. And so she is physically female, but she has no uterus. She can never have a baby. And, she's going to have to be on hormone supplements to maintain her female post-adolescent body. So anyway, this is tough stuff for a dad to handle, and they do. And it's really, really wonderful the way there's a little bit of conflict, and there's some, she goes through some bullying, and but her friends are very supportive and wonderful. It's a really, really good book until you get to the last 40 pages. And this part really makes me mad. And I will be the first to admit that I am super sensitive about teen issues. I'm very protective of the kids, and it makes me mad when authors and publishers don't take responsibility for the issues that they're uncovering in their books. So in the last part of this book, and I'm going to completely ruin it, spoiler alert, Kristen is attacked in a nightclub, and this guy who, I don't know, this is a horrible thing that happens when people find out that you're different. They think that they have permission to touch people, which is so, so wrong. And so he attacks her and then tries to rape her. And he even goes so far as to have his fingers inside her, which is a huge violation and extremely traumatic. And she fights back, and one of her friends comes and basically saves her. Now, when the police show up, she tells them that he had attacked her and knocked her down, but she doesn't mention anything about the attempted rape. Now, I totally understand that. That's very realistic. However, she is in therapy, and she has a very supportive friend group, and it's never spoken of again. Not only that, but the authors and the publishers, they present resources at the end of the book for sexual identity and intersex development, things like that, and there's nothing about rape. That really, really bothers me. That I admit that I'm sensitive. The rest of the book is really well done. It really left a bad taste in my mouth at the end. So take that any way you like. It is a great book. It's one of a kind. I've never read another YA book about intersex teens. So if you have need of an issue like this could be a good book with some conversation. I think that the rape scene at the end is pretty hardcore. So anyway, I'm glad that publishers are going this way, though. I think it's important. All right, moving on. Extraordinary Means. This was a fascinating book. This is kind of a different kind of apocalyptic, I guess, maybe dystopian. I'm not really sure where to put it. It's in the future, and there is a new strain of tuberculosis going around the world, and it's very deadly and very contagious. And so people are freaking out. And this is about a bunch of kids who tested positive for this very virulent strain, and they're put in basically a sanatorium. It's called Latham House, and it's a place for them to be healed. So they aren't allowed to do schoolwork. They're not supposed to stress themselves. They have monitored, exercise time. They have fresh air, lots of fresh food. They meet with counselors to make sure that their blood pressure is staying stable and all this crazy stuff. Now, the main character, Lane, is an overachiever. So this is a struggle. All of a sudden he's going from AP classes and what college am I going to apply to you need to keep your blood pressure down. I'm going to take away all your books, which is pretty hardcore. There's a big crisis, identity crisis here, which is fascinating. Now, because they're all together, they have that boarding school feel, so they all become very tight very fast, and there's a couple of romances. But the thing that is always in the back of their minds is that they all have a death sentence on their heads. Like, there is no cure for this, and it's only a matter of time before one of them gets really, really sick, and of course several of them do. The ending's a little pat. I don't know. It's a little clean for me. But on the other hand, it's a really good book. I liked it. I thought it was interesting. It doesn't take that that dystopian stuff that's been done over and over again. It doesn't take that too far. It's just a little taste of it into what would happen if. So I think this is a really good book, especially if you have kids who are into this kind of topic. It could be interesting. All right, so it's 2015. We just passed the 10-year anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. So we have lots of Katrina books out there. And this one is written by one of our own, a Vermont author, Tamara Ellis Smith. And this is an interesting book. I have to say in the beginning, I wanted to like it more than I did. I really did. I give this book lots of extra credit for being a Vermont book, because I think your kids will like the fact that it takes place on Mount Mansfield, and that they're going to recognize the landmarks and really relate to this kid. But on the other hand, I think it could be better. So this is what it's about. It's about a kid named Wayne, who is a mountain climber kid, rough and tumble. He's 10, and his best friend, no, his name is Henry. Sorry, his best friend's name is Wayne. I'm terrible with names. Anyway, Wayne dies in one of their adventures, and it's kind of alluded to through the whole book. And Henry feels responsible, and plus he just lost his best friend, and at 10 years old, that's rough stuff. So he is going through a profound time of grief. It's something that he's really struggling with, and he's just not sure what to do with it all. And he lives in Vermont, and he loves Mount Mansfield, and he sees on the news that Hurricane Katrina is, ravaging the South, and he doesn't really know how to compute that either. And yet his neighbors are going and taking lots of donations and food and clothes down to New Orleans, which seems like a really far away place. So he donates some clothes to the organization that's sending things down to New Orleans. And one of the things he donates is his favorite pair of jeans that don't fit him anymore. And unfortunately, in those jeans, he accidentally leaves a marble. And this marble is this giant marble that he and his best friend had found, and they thought it was magic, and he carried it around everywhere. It was supposed to be his lucky charm. And when it accidentally gets donated, he gets very upset. So turning over to the other side of the story, you have a kid named Zavion, and Zavion lives in New Orleans, like 9th Ward. He loses his house. Horrible, horrible stuff. And luckily he's with his dad, and they both survive. They lose everything they ever knew, though, and they go to, I think, Mississippi to live with some family. And he's really, really struggling with this. And one of the things he's really struggling with is he doesn't like to owe people anything. And they did steal some things from a convenience store when they were hungry, and he left a roof shingle behind. It's very cute, because he felt like he owed them some payment, but he still feels like he owes them money, and he wants to go back and repay them. And so he goes back to New Orleans. He tries to go back himself to repay this little store. And meanwhile, Henry in Vermont, he kind of colludes with some of his family members to come down to New Orleans to help with the devastation, but secretly he's also looking for his black marble. And it turns out that Zavion got the jeans that Henry donated with the marble in them, and so there they meet. It's a little contrived, but it's pretty cute. Their stories aren't as intertwined. They're not as connected, I guess, as I was hoping them to be, but it is a sweet story. and their families are fascinating. The ending is a little too neat, I guess. But Hurricane Katrina is something that young kids today may not have a sense of. So this could be a good introduction to them. So there you go. What do we got next? Oh, yes, the newest Meg Cabot. So Meg Cabot just doesn't stop. This is from the Notebooks of a Middle School Princess. This is her middle grade version of the Princess Diaries. Now, if you've read the Princess Diaries, you know they are not great works of fiction. They're not literature. I read the first one a long, long time ago. I can see the appeal. They're kind of sugary and whatever and fairy tale-ish. Nothing special. And the same thing with this. There's not a lot special here. Although I have to say that the main character, whose name is Olivia Grace Clarice Mignonette Harrison, she is half black and half white, which is an interesting twist. And I do love that. She is mixed race and proud of it. And so she doesn't know her dad, and it's this big secret, and no one will tell her anything. And she lives with her mom, and she finds out that her dad was a prince, and that what the heck is her name? Princess Mia. The Princess Mia from Princess Diaries is her cousin. And so they all go together, and now they're one big happy family, and there's very pretty dresses and blah, 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 blah. And she finally gets to meet her mom. Nothing special. However, I think your kids are going to want these. They're harmless, and Meg Cabot is a name, and the kids are going to love the pink frothiness. So you might have to buy them. I know sometimes we do things we don't want to do. All right, Lisa Graff. Lisa Graff wrote, the heck was the name of that book? I hate it when things don't pull up the way you want. She wrote a book that's on the DCF list this year, Absolutely Almost, which I adored. I loved that book. This book, not the same. It's good, don't get me wrong, and it's in contention for the Canfield Fisher nomination list, but it's not anywhere as good as the other book. This is a story about a boy. He's in 5th grade. His name is Trent, and he accidentally killed a classmate. He hit a hockey puck, and it happened to hit this boy in the chest, and he had a heart condition that no one knew about, and he had a heart attack and he died, which is tragic. And he's trying to get over that. Now, I don't know. I mean, I understand that when you're in 5th grade, you get over things like that and you grieve very differently than adults. But this just seemed a little, I don't know, it wasn't as cohesive as I really wanted it to be. He meets this girl named Fallon who has a huge scar across her face, and she makes up stories for how she got it because she doesn't want to tell anybody how she got it. And they become fast friends. They're kind of the two outcasts. So obviously they're both dealing with very, very big scars, emotional or physical, and trying to fit in and figure out their deals. Trent has quite a bit of anxiety, which I don't know. There's also middle school, which it sucks for everybody. I don't know. I just didn't find this really to glue together. The family seemed kind of disjointed to me. I liked their friendship. I really did. It reminds me of like Stargirl. But the whole story itself, I really didn't get the continuity that I wanted. So this is a good book that, your kids are going to ask for it. Other people really, really liked it more than I did. So you might want to pick it up and see what you think for yourself. All right, moving on. Circus Miranda. So by now, if you've been listening to these recordings, you will know that I am not the hugest fantasy fan ever, but I liked this book. This was a fascinating book, and rather than it being a fantasy novel just for the sake of being fantasy, I really felt like the fantasy was a tool to kind of deal with some big issues. So this is about a boy named Micah, and he lives with his grandfather, Grandpa Ephraim, and they have an adorable relationship. Unfortunately, Grandpa Ephraim is very, very sick. And but Grandpa is a very, very good storyteller, and he tells stories about this magical place called Circus Miranda. And there is the Lightbender and all these like crazy people in this circus. And so he's been telling him these stories all the time, all his life. And now that he's really sick, he tells him a secret that Circus Miranda is real and the Lightbender is real. And that when he was a little kid, he got a wish from the Lightbender, and that the Lightbender was going to grant that wish. And so Micah, he and his friends have an adventure to try to find the Lightbender, because he is convinced that he will save his grandfather's life and let him live, because, you know, what else would his grandfather have wished for? So he goes on this adventure and tries to find this magical place. In the end, you know, he finds out that that's not what his grandfather had wished for at all. And his grandfather does die, which is sad, but it's not a tearjerker. It's very real. It's a really good book. It's, you know, trying to deal with the mortality of someone you love is it's a really interesting topic, and just the fantasy of this circus and this Lightbender is really good. I like the characters a lot in this book. This is a thick book. It's good on audio, but I think if you have kids who like this kind of fantasy, it might get them into a little bit more realistic themes, because the book in its core is a realistic fiction book. It just happens to have this this fantastical element in it. So I liked it. All right, next. Oh, Dear Hank Williams. I adored this book. This book, Kimberly Willis Holt, she wrote my all-time favorite book. What's it called? Zachary Beaver. When Zachary Beaver Came to Town, that's the one. I love that book so much. And this book is a little younger. It's small. It's not that long at all. I think it's, let me see how many pages it is. 224 pages. And I'd say it's probably a fourth grade book, maybe even third. I really liked this book because it takes place in 1948 in Louisiana, and it's about a girl who gets an assignment to get a pen pal. Now, it's during World War II, or right after World War II, and there's a lot of anti-Japanese sentiment in the classrooms and in the society. And so when the teacher arranges for pen pals from Japan, there's really interesting reactions from the kids. But Tate is not interested in that. She wants to get her own pen pal. And so she decides to pick Hank Williams, who is rising to fame in Louisiana on the radio, and is not, you know, internationally known yet, but will be. And so this little girl is just enamored with him. And so she writes letters to him. Now, he never writes back. Sometimes he sends her signed pictures, but he never writes back. It's a really interesting kind of one-sided conversation about her family and about her friends. And I just think it's really wonderful. She's also a singer, but she doesn't have a lot of confidence. And she's been told that she doesn't sing very well. And so she's not really sure she wants to. So it's really, really well done. I really love this book. I think, let me see if I remember. The Grand Ole Opry shows, you know, it's just good, such good historical information. So anyway, she manages to get her whole family listening to his radio shows, and she kind of has this imaginary relationship with him. It's really, really beautifully done, I have to say. And it's short, and I think your kids will like it. All right. Moving on, Sarafina and the Black Cloak. You know, somebody on the Canfield Fisher Award Committee really liked this, and I thought I'll give it a shot. I did not like it. I just, you know, fantasy's not my thing, so this was hard for me. This is about a girl named Sarafina. She lives in the basement with her father, and she's supposed to stay out of sight, and she doesn't really know why. And there's all these mysterious things happening, and she sees this man in a black cloak, and he's pretty freaky. And later on, some kids start to disappear, and she suspects that the man in the black cloak might be behind it. And so, she gets wrapped up in this mystery. Meanwhile, there's this kind of enchanted forest where these enchanted animals or wolves come from. And she finds out, I'm going to ruin this for you, that she actually came from the forest too, that her father found her and that she might actually be part wolf. Not sure. I don't know. I just didn't buy a lot of it. It just seemed bizarre to me. And I mean, the whole second-class citizen living in the basement thing, but I don't know. She makes friends with some of the other kids. And of course she solves the mystery and finds the kids, and I don't know. Not my favorite, and you can definitely read other reviews if you have kids who are into this level of fantasy, but not my favorite at all. Now, a book I really loved was this one, Like a River. This is historical fiction. I'd say it's like 5th, 6th, 7th grade maybe. And Civil War novels, good ones, recent ones, are hard to find. I remember the Civil War novels we had to read when I was in middle school, and they were miserable. But this one was really interesting. It's told from two different perspectives, Leander and Polly, and they have two very different reasons for joining the army. And so you have Leander, who has decided to join the army. He's young, and he lies about his age and decides to go. His brother is also serving, and so he feels like he wants to be treated like a man, and so he goes off to war. And then you have Polly. Polly decides to disguise herself as a boy and joins the army. So you have these two kids who have these pretty big secrets, and they have very different paths. And basically what happens is that you read these stories, they're every other chapter is from one of them, but they only interact in this middle part of the book, but it's pretty profound. So Leander ends up in the hospital because he loses his arm and in a kind of stupid accident, and Polly takes care of him. Of course, he doesn't know Polly's a girl, and Polly's there taking care of her father, who dies, and he is part of that whole thing. He's part of seeing her father die and the grieving and the burial. And she takes care of him, of course, when he's injured pretty severely. And then he's sent home, and Polly goes on, and she is eventually captured, and it's very vividly described, the prisoner of war camps. And I was reading about it. It's based on real prisoner of war camps. The conditions were absolutely brutal. People were dying left and right of disease, and they didn't have clean water and exposure. It was really terrible. And so in the end, they see each other again, but it's not like they're friends. They just kind of know each other. I kind of wish there had been one more chapter to kind of wrap it up at the end. But I did really, really like this. I think the kids who are interested in the Civil War, or if you're teaching something about the Civil War, I think they'll really like the detail in this story. It's a story you don't really hear about what it was really like. War was very different back in the Civil War. They were in the mud, on the ground, fighting for their lives. There were no planes. There were no jeeps. They were, walking in bare feet sometimes in the middle of the winter. And finding food was a really big issue. So I think this could be a really good book for your kids. So I highly recommend it. All right, I swear we're getting down to the end. Okay, The Improbable Theory of Anna and Zach. I adored this book. This is a high school book. We do not have enough books like this. It fills a couple of different gaps. One is that it is a book that takes place in like 24 hours, which is awesome, very similar to Nick and Nora. And then the other thing is that it covers Comic-Cons, which is another thing we don't hear about a lot in YA literature, which is unacceptable. We need to hear more about Comic-Cons. So anyway, this is a story about Zach. He is failing health, and his teacher said, okay, you're failing health. Here's the deal. Either you don't graduate, he's a senior, or you join Quiz Bowl. And he, of course, wants to graduate. So he decides to join the Quiz Bowl and sorry. There you go. He decides to join the Quiz Bowl, and of course, he's not a very academic kid, and he's not really interested in being part of this group. But the kids that he meets are really nice. I think my phone is still ringing. Yay. Okay. So he meets these kids. So the thing about Zach is he's a gamer. He spends all day in the library playing Dungeons and Dragons, and he is not interested in reading or in doing anything academic or nerdy. We're just going to wait for it to finish ringing because I can't figure out how to make it silence. Are you with me there? Okay. This is a little break. You can drink some coffee. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, this story is really good. It's full of adventure. It's definitely mature. There are guns. There's cocaine. There's no sex, but there's a gay wedding, which is awesome. So there's some mature themes here, but it's really, really interesting. So it's about these kids. You have Anna, who is a Quiz Bowl. She's an overachiever. She's already gotten into college. She's a Quiz Bowl champion. Her little brother, who's very young, he skipped some grades and is a total whiz. He's with them, but he's socially, a little immature. And so he's tagging along with them. And they're all in a hotel in Seattle for this Quiz Bowl. And the problem is that Zach is missing Comic-Con, and he's very sad about it because he's never missed Comic-Con, and he loves Comic-Con, and his friends are very mad at him for not going, but he has to go to the Quiz Bowl or he won't graduate. So he goes to the Quiz Bowl, and he's very angry, but he's going to follow the rules, and, he actually helps them a lot and helps them win. And then in the night, in the evening, they have free time for dinner, and he decides to take the little brother out to dinner, and the little brother's like, nah, I'm not interested. Meanwhile, he and Anna are talking and getting a little bit closer, and the little brother disappears, and he goes out on the town, and they freak out, and they decide to go find him. They figure out that he's gone to Comic-Con because Zach has talked about it in this very dramatic, exciting way that the kid's like, I want to go. So he goes, and then the whole story is basically this, I don't even know how to describe it, this like snowball effect of wackiness. So you have everyone's in costume, so like Boba Fett is jumping out of the corner, and you have like the wedding where one side of the aisle is Star Wars and one side of the aisle is Star Trek, and it's crazy pants, and they're all playing all these crazy games, and the fire alarm goes off, and in the meantime, they can't find the kid. He keeps slipping away. He's like a greased weasel, and then they get wrapped up in some crazy stuff because someone has drugs in a bag, and the police get involved, and anyway, he has Zach has a strained relationship with his new stepfather, but he ends up saving the day in the end, which I thought was really wonderful, like little detail. So I think I loved this book. I think it was funny. It's about a topic we don't usually hear about, and it takes place all in one day, really, really fast read, tons of action, but there's some real meat behind it. So I loved it. I think, plus Brian Catcher is just freaking awesome. Okay. Goodbye Stranger. I was really, looking forward to this one, although in retrospect, I'm not sure why. I don't really like Rebecca Stead. When You Reach Me won the Newbery a couple years back, and not my favorite book. And this one, again, not my favorite book. Um, I found it to be kind of tedious, I think is the word I would use. It's multiple perspectives. And okay, I will blame the audio production for this. I really didn't like the audiobook. The voices were too similar and I could not figure out who was who. So I would not recommend the audiobook for you, especially if you're someone who doesn't keep good track of names like me. So this is about a bunch of kids, and it's basically about seventh grade, and I don't know, like I didn't really feel like anything happened. You have, these friends, and they are friends and they fight, and there's, I don't know, there's family problems and there's crushes and blah blah blah. I'm just gonna see if they gave them a start. No, they didn't get a start review in School Library Journal. I don't know. If you like Rebecca Stead, you should definitely get it. People will ask for it. But like I said, I didn't really like it. I found it really tedious, and I wasn't really interested in the characters. However, if you read the actual book and you like that style of writing, you might like this one. So that's all I'm going to say. All right, I just finished this one. I'm glad I did. This is a high school book. I think this is a book you could probably skip, but I'll tell you about it anyway. It takes place in the 1960s, which is kind of an awkward time period. Kids, I don't think, really identify with that time period. It's before the Civil Rights Movement. I don't know, it's Mad Men era, but kids don't watch that stuff. It takes place in New York City, and it's about a girl who wants to be a songwriter. Her entire family is lawyers, and she really wants to be a songwriter, and they are a little dubious of that. So she is in New York City, and she gets a job for a record company as a assistant songwriter, and she's very excited, and her parents are like, you can do it for the summer, but then after that, you're going to Barnard, and fine. So she is kind of thrust into this crazy world of songwriting and the music industry and the craziness. So in the meantime, the janitor in her building, her name is Dulcie, is an ex-singer, and they're not really sure why, she has kind of fallen out of favor with the music industry, and she wants to give her a comeback, so she writes a song and tries to get her to sing it. But then she commits suicide, jumps off of the building, and the main character, JJ, she thinks there's something fishy about it. She thinks she might have been murdered. So she gets all wrapped up in this and finds out a whole bunch of secrets. It's kind of tabloidy, I guess. So it's a decent book. It's on the edge of being adulty because, these kids are 18. They've finished high school. They're on to college. But I don't know that it's going to have enough teen appeal for this generation to be, a big hit with your kids. That being said, I thought it was okay. Okay, this book I really loved, Tommy, The Gun That Changed America. I love history, and this is narrative nonfiction. It's not quite on the Steve Sheinkin level of riveting scale, but I thought it was really fascinating. I sometimes forget how just rich and seedy the Prohibition era is. It's really crazy. And so reading about the history of America through the eye of the machine gun, I just thought it was fascinating, and I think kids will too. So it starts out with the Civil War. I had no idea that the machine gun was invented in the Civil War, and the politics behind it, and the fact that one of the first machine guns was, perfected on Armistice Day. So they missed World War I, so they didn't have a lot of sales. So they started selling to police because they needed the money. And it was just really interesting, and the origin of the gun laws and registration of guns and the gangsters. I just thought this was really wonderful. You don't have to read the whole thing. You can read different pieces of it. There's tons of pictures and some pretty graphic. It's all black and white though, and lots of tidbits that I think kids would find fascinating. It's not. The end isn't as riveting as I think some of the other pieces are, and there is a whole anti-gun kind of rant in the last chapter, which I thought was a little I don't know, preachy, I guess. But, you know, she has a good point. So anyway, I think this could be good if you have need for this type of book. All right, I got my hands on an arc of this book. It's coming out, I think, October. There you go. It's called Orbiting Jupiter by Gary Schmidt. Gary Schmidt is amazing. This is one of the most beautifully written books I've read in a long time. However, because it was beautifully written, it was also beautifully heartbreaking. I haven't sobbed that hard in a long time. So we're having a debate in the Canfield Fisher Award committee about who the audience is for this book, and I wanted to just see who they recommend it for. Okay, they say 12 and up, and you know, it's gotten starred reviews. I'm not sure. I'll be interested just to read the whole School Library Journal review for it to see what they recommend. This story is hardcore. I think it breaks some of the cardinal rules of children's literature, but that can be debated. This is about a kid. Let's see, the main character's name is Jack, and he lives on a farm with his parents, and they take in a foster child whose name is Joseph. And I think Jack is like 10 or 11, and Joseph is 13. No, he's 14 at the time. And so Joseph moves in, and he is very troubled. He was in a juvenile facility, and it turns out that he has a son or a daughter. And he had this daughter when he was 13, and he's never met her. Her name is Jupiter, after his favorite planet and the mother's favorite planet. And so you don't know a lot about it because Joseph doesn't talk a lot. He's very traumatized. He doesn't like it when people touch him or come near him. So they have a lot of trouble kind of warming up to him. But they live on a farm, and he makes friends with the horses and the cows. And this book is just so lyrically written. It's very short, it's like 200 pages, but it really packs it in there. It takes place in rural Maine, which I think a lot of the kids around here could relate to. But the issues are tough. So you have a lot of bullying at the school. They hear that, you know, he was in a juvenile detention center. So what happened was that, you know, he found out, you will hear this unravel as the book progresses, but you eventually find out that the mother dies in childbirth, and, you know, he was in love with her. And so it breaks his heart, and he has a bad reaction. And his father is abusive, physically abusive. So he doesn't really have anywhere to go. So he is in the school, and he's having kind of a meltdown. And some kid decides to slip him some pills. No idea what he slipped him. LSD maybe? Anyway, he freaks out and he tries to kill a teacher. But he has no memory of it. And that's why he's sent to the juvenile facility. So, of course, the kids in Maine hear about this, and they start bullying him and beating him up. And it's really terrible. Jack really, really wants to be this kid's friend and really wants to stand up for him and protect him, but it's very hard. The end of this book is utterly tragic. I'm just going to warn you now. If you are at all sensitive, I would not recommend this book. It had me in tears. So I think, you know, on the surface, this could be a middle school book, like 7th grade maybe, 6th, 7th maybe. But I don't know, the whole book just seemed so wise and so kind of omniscient. I mean, it was supposed to be told from this 12-year-old's point of view, Jack, the foster brother, and kind of experiencing all of this. But it was so omniscient that it almost seemed adult to me. I really think, and I'm not sure what other people are going to think yet, but I really think this might be an adult book. And it just happens to be about kids. I think it's going to be a tough sell to your kids. I think it's a good topic for high school, but they're too young. The kids aren't going to be interested in that. And middle school, I don't know. This is hardcore. Although I will say that I'm very conscious of the fact that, you know, we as caretakers get much more upset about these topics than the kids do. But this book is definitely one that deserves some discussion. And, you know, if you get it for your library, I'd be interested to hear what the kids think. And then again, you know, this book is beautifully written, absolutely gorgeous. You'll read it in one sitting. I definitely did. All right. This book I just finished like 5 minutes ago. It's called Honey. Sarah Weeks is one of my favorite authors, so I had to read this one. And so this is told in 2 points of view, one by a little girl named Melody and one by a little dog named Mo. The dog's part, I think I could have lived without. It was a little strange, but Melody is adorable. She lives with her father and has all these quirky, amazing friends, and they live in Indiana, and she doesn't have a mother, and her father doesn't really want to talk about it. And so it's a small town though, so everyone, they saw her at the funeral, they knew a lot of things, but no one is really giving it up. So she's just kind of known as the girl without a mother. And anyway, so the crux of the story is that her father starts acting weird. He starts being distracted and burning things, and he starts talking to someone on the phone and calling them honey. And she is mortified because what if he's dating someone? And then she hears she's eavesdropping at the salon, and she hears her least favorite teacher, who she can't stand, say that she's getting married and that they haven't told the family yet. So she assumes her dad's dating her least favorite teacher and has a heart attack. So she and her friends all kind of launched this investigation to figure out who her dad is dating and why, and who this honey person is. And they come to the conclusion that it's this awful teacher, and she finally confronts her father. It turns out she's wrong, of course. This is a really sweet story. Not a lot happens in it. It's a very small town, lots of quirky, awesome characters. A lot of it takes place in a beauty salon, which I love. And you do hear, about the dog at the end, and the dog does wrap together with the story of the mom and how she died. And it's very sweet, very true to Sarah Weeks' style. So I definitely would recommend this. I think, let's see what they say, grade 3 to 5. Yeah, I think that's fine. 3 and 4 maybe. I think that your kids will really like this. It's short, and if you own Pi, which was also adorable, you probably want to own this one. Okay, so I think I got everything. I just started the new Carolyn Mackler. I love her, so I can't wait to tell you all about that one. But thanks for hanging in there with the slight lisp and the phone calls. So I will see you again next month. If you ever have any questions, comments, concerns, definitely let me know. My contact information is all over the website. If you go to the Children and Teens main page, right here, you click on my name, my email address. You can also give me a call. And if I don't answer, I'm probably doing another web program. Anyway, take care. Have a wonderful September, and I will talk to you soon.